Hey folks, this shouldn't be a very long video. It's really sort of an addendum to the last one I did. I still have the Dynalogic Hyperion open because I decided I wanted to replace the battery for the real-time clock. I'm lucky enough as it is that, I mean, if you take a look, absolutely zero corrosion has occurred. And I'm lucky right there because it's a 40-year-old battery. But it won't hold a charge. It'll actually charge up to what it's supposed to be, which is 2.4 volts, but it immediately starts to discharge. So I'm going to replace that. First, I had to look up, I didn't know off the top of my head what size that is. And if you take a look at the official name for it, kind of makes sense. I've got two replacements. This is called a 1/3 AA. What a surprise, because they're 1/3 AA. Hey, so now I've made a battery pack before for a laptop, but I wanted to show you that you can make a replacement battery for the one on the board. It's not that hard. If you've got the equipment to make a battery pack, which is the little baby welding unit, you've got the equipment to make a battery for your system board. First, we're going to get the old one off the board. That leg was easy enough. And there we go, it's off. That was easy for once. There we go. All it is the two 1/3 AA's, has a nickel strap connecting the two, and a flat strip that ends in a component leg at the end. I'm actually going to see, probably won't work, but I don't have anything like this. I'm going to see if I can actually pull these off the battery without much damage. If not, I'll think of something else. There we go. I can reuse that. That should work. I'm going to see if I can get the other one off. I'm just slowly trying to peel it back like a top on a can. Let's see if it'll peel away from the little battery welds that put it on there. See if I can flatten that out and see. I think that's going to work just fine, actually. There's plenty of metal left to re-weld it to the new battery. I think that should work. I think it should work. I'm going to do another one. Make sure it's nice and solid. There. I think, with any luck, yeah, it's not wanting to come off. There. That's pretty good. Alright. There. I got one battery leg through. Now I gotta get the other one. There we go. As you notice, I covered the batteries with such fancy black duct tape, but it's safe. That's all I'm worried about. Okay, I thought this supplemental video was going to be something small, but it's not turning out that way. Now I finished the battery. As you can see, it's in place, and it's producing 2.4 volts like it's supposed to, and that charge is holding when I turn it off and unplug it and leave it overnight. It's working great. But the problem is that when I put in the date, and it say you put in an MS-DOS disk, and of course it asks for a date, you put in the date, and say it was 6/13, okay? You put in 6/13/2002, and it takes 2002. But when you ask for the date back after you turn it back on, it says it's 6/15. The second digit of the day of the month always stays 5. If you put in 27, it'll come back 25. And the time goes off very quickly. I'm talking 15 minutes in a 24-hour period, which is huge, of course, especially for a battery that is working well. The battery is doing exactly what it's supposed to. Now, I looked up on the schematic because right off the bat, I didn't know the number of the real-time clock. It doesn't look like the ones you would see a little bit later that had an internal battery. Of course, this doesn't have an internal battery. This one is just a plain IC, and back then that was this. Let me try to get it focused. An MSN 5832R. Now that's the real-time clock. This is on the input-output board. Now what's funny is that the real-time clock, there's its crystal, which is a 32.76 kilohertz, I believe. That's the kind that they always used for real-time clock back then. And a trimmer capacitor. That is the circuitry for keeping time. But one thing I checked was that I put on my scope on the crystal, and it's not producing a signal. So on the real-time clock, I checked the voltage pin. It says 3.9. Now, when I unplug it and check the voltage on that pin, it says 2.4, exactly what it should be. When you unplug it, the voltage on that pin should be the voltage produced by your battery, 2.4. So it's making it from the battery, which is on the other panel, all the way to this chip on the voltage leg, doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And the operating voltage for this chip is 4.5 to 6 volts. So this chip was not functioning. It's not getting the proper voltage. And the way I tested it was, as you can see, I put on a temporary, just for safety's sake, so I wouldn't accidentally touch something else. I soldered on a little temporary lead on the power leg of the chip. I hooked up an external power supply, set it on 5 volts, put it on here, then powered the unit up. When I change the date changes correctly. It doesn't end in 5 on the day of the month. The time of the day, I don't know. The crystal started producing signal because the power to the crystal comes from the chip, because this crystal's between 2 legs of the chip. So the crystal's dependent upon this chip getting power for a signal to be created by it. So when you give power to this, the circuit's working properly. So this chip is not getting its proper voltage. Here's the circuitry for the real-time clock. Now this is the circuitry where the battery is. This is the circuitry that goes from the battery on the system board all the way to the real-time clock on the input-output board. So you have just these parts to worry about. As you can see, here's the battery, and the battery is working properly. We know because the voltage created by the battery, 2.4, is making it all the way to the power leg of the chip when the unit's turned off. But for some reason, the power, when you turn it on, leaving here is 3.9. See, this goes to VDD on the chip. So it's already wrong when it leaves here. So this is where the problem lies. Now we know it's not the battery, so really it's just a handful of parts. One of them has got a problem. So let's find out what it is. So here's our parts. Here's the two resistors. Here's the resistor I said already checks out correct, R52. So all we've got to check are these two transistors and these three resistors. And that's all of the circuit we have to check. The problem's going to be in there somewhere. So let me pull them out one at a time, see what's up. First I'm going to do the easy part and less destructive. Here's the three resistors on the back. I'm going to pull out one side of each so I can measure the resistors properly out of circuit. And that way I don't have to disturb the other side. Well, I checked the three resistors. Of course, they were fine. I've really never seen a resistor go bad that didn't obviously physically look bad. So it leaves us down to the two transistors, which I kind of figured was going to be. So I'm going to put those resistors back and we'll pull the transistors. Well, the 2N2222 came up as no unknown or damaged on the tester. Focus. So with any luck I'm going to replace it because I have plenty of them, but none of the I don't have any of the P&P on hand. I'd have to send off for it if that one, because there's one P&P, one NPN, and I don't have the other. So crossing my fingers, this is going to be it. Well, I replaced the 2N2222. That didn't make a difference. Okay, I didn't have an exact replacement for the other transistor, which is a 2N2907. So I got the closest thing I could find to an equivalent, which I think I used a BC327. It probably doesn't make much difference. It's, you know, a small 5-volt circuit. But here's what happened. The voltage pin, 4.8. That got it. It was that one transistor. Now, like I said, the last time I tested the crystal here, there was no signal at all. It had a minor voltage, but there was no signal. It was flatline. So and there's our signal, 32.778. It fluctuates slightly, but it's good enough. Okay, everything's been reassembled. Let's find out what happens to the real-time clock now. Okay, well, this is the first time that the day of the month didn't end at 5, so there's something there. 06 19 2002. That ain't right. 2022. Current time is, it's almost absolutely dead on the nose of 4 o'clock, so this is a 24-hour clock, of course. So 16 colon 00 colon 0, 0. I'm very close. I'm gonna try to synchronize it. Boom. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to be back in a few minutes. I want to let it sit, see if anything drifts in the time as well. I'll be back. Okay, it's been a few minutes. Let's see what we've got. We've got a correct date, and we've got a correct time. The real-time clock now functions like a real-time clock's supposed to be. Well, that should take care of that. I think that's just about everything in here except for the math coprocessor I'm waiting on to show up here, but that's not anything interesting to see me put a chip in a socket. So I think this thing is finally back in one piece. I hope that you got something out of it. Catch you next time.